Hello, dear viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today for another channeled video. I had put a video out a while back updating and asking for feedback, and a number of you liked the channeled video I did. So I'm going to do one, and a viewer in that chat, in that comment section said that it would be interesting to do one on Lucifer, which I take to mean the whole concept of evil, because the concept of Lucifer to me it's a representation. It's a representation. So how do we deal with this in this realm? It is a stumbling block for most people at some point in their spiritual journey. So I am going to set aside the Becca that I've created during this lifetime, the Becca you see me as, and ask Source to completely take over and give me the words. Dear ones, the number one problem that people living in your dimension have with the notion that there is a loving, all-powerful, all-knowing source, creator, God, what have you, energy, is the problem of evil. And you would define evil as actions from other human beings that are harmful to other human beings, that are particularly those that are purposely harmful, that seem malicious. You have all kinds of vocabulary for this. Malicious, malevolent, vengeful, perhaps. There are so many words because it's a human experience that is difficult to cope with. So, dear one, you cannot be expected to simply be untroubled about this. You cannot be expected to never have a problem with this issue. You cannot be expected to accept this with serenity. This is a practice. Maybe I can tell you some things that will help you to understand why evil. Evil actions are always based in fear. They are done when people are not conscious of their true selves. They do not understand that they are eternal beings, eternal souls, a part of the Creator, a part of the divine. They do not love themselves. They do not understand they cannot be harmed. They cannot be injured. They will live forever. They do not understand that, and they've gotten confused. They've gotten confused about that, and they think, as all humans do, at some points, to some extent, they think that their physical body is them. Their personality that they have created, that others see them as, is them. And that's it. They think that's them. And rather than seeing that those aspects of themselves as the ego, it's really a false self, they are living out of that false self. And human beings do this. Human beings do this. But some human beings are so wrapped up in fear for protecting that false self that they forever think that they are in competition with other egos, with other human beings as they see them, for safety, for security, for resources, for power. They cannot see. They are simply blind. And it is tempting then for the human beings around them to fight fire with fire, to also become more focused on their own egos, their own smaller false selves. I say false self because the real self is eternal, is part of the greater consciousness, is divine, is creative, is untouchable. And the false self is a false self because your idea of who you are is not accurate. Other people's idea of who you are is not accurate. There's only the self in this current moment anyway. This self's history and future are illusions. They are stories. So, the problem with evil and defending oneself against evil, in fact, is the very human tendency to get wrapped up in our false selves. It's very understandable. It is difficult for human beings to understand that the egos that are acting out of fearfulness and they are attacking, they are stealing, they are harming other human beings, it's difficult to see they're simply suffering from the same malady that every human being suffers from to some extent. Now, people get concerned about letting go of their ability to identify and condemn evil, because then are they simply vulnerable? Then will they have lost the ability to defend themselves? Then is it all over? Are they now vulnerable to those people who are apt to attack them or harm them, their self on this earth, that self? It is all very puzzling and complicated. There is nothing wrong with identifying another human being's fear. They're fearful and aggressive, maybe deceitful, maybe manipulative behavior. In fact, if you accept that human beings do get themselves in these kinds of mindsets, if you accept them as they are, where they are on their spiritual journey, you will see it. You will see it. You absolutely will see where they're operating out of fear, where they're a danger to you, to your family, in your human selves. You will absolutely see that. And that's as you should. Then you can take action to protect your body, protect the bodies of those you hold dear, you are responsible to protect. You can take those actions, and that is not being unloving. That is not being unspiritual. You are in this game. You are a part of humanity. Your higher self chose to come in to a human body and complete this lifetime here in this dimension. You are in the game. Of course, you would protect the well-being of that body. Of course. Your human body has instincts to protect itself, to protect those you love, of course. Do not apologize for that. There is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with, in a very clear-eyed way, seeing where other human beings are a threat to you because they are confused, they are fearful, they are perceiving themselves as perhaps always under threat, so always ready to be aggressive or go to unnatural lengths. I don't want to even say unnatural. Go to uncalled for lengths to protect themselves and what they hold dear. It's all right to see that clear as day. Accepting them for who they are and having forgiveness for other human beings does not mean you don't see that. And it does not mean that you don't defend yourself against that. In fact, to see that clearly is to accept that in other human beings and perhaps in yourself. And that can actually be the more loving, more spiritually mature thing to do. You see where they're at. It's not about condemnation. It's about using good judgment, using your intuition, using your wisdom to assess. So, if it is all right to protect yourself from that, and it's all right to recognize times that you have been perhaps harmful to other human beings out of fearfulness, and it's all right to forgive yourself for that. Forgiving yourself, forgiving others for these very human tendencies and the fact that they have amnesia and they don't recall what they knew before they came into this dimension. Brings peace. Forgiving yourself, forgiving them, acceptance, it all brings peace, but it also brings great clarity. It is forgiveness. Acceptance is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not putting yourself at risk. Forgiveness is not giving and giving to someone who is not benefiting from your generosity, because it is only feeding their false self, their ego, their desire to protect this false self. It's only feeding that, and that does no good for anybody. So you don't need to pour into that. Forgiveness and acceptance does not mean you do that. In fact, it means you do not do that. Because you see things clearly, you accept them the way they are. You do not have to be in denial about what you're seeing. So, boundaries set, efforts to protect yourself, efforts to protect those you love, but not in a fearful way. We can protect the self that is on this earth, the earthly self, while understanding that that is simply the avatar. That's simply the avatar for this particular game. But we are supposed to be in the game, and we chose to be in the game, and we're learning in this learning field. So it's all right to protect that avatar, that character. It's all right. It's all right to wish to remain in this dimension to learn the lessons that you came here to learn, and you may not even know what those are, but across your lifetime, you will be growing in your sense of direction. So, how to believe in a good and loving source when you feel surrounded at times by human beings who do not understand their divinity, who do not understand that there is a oneness, a greater consciousness, who do not understand that there is a soul, a higher self, for them and for everybody they meet. How to deal with that fact and believe there is a loving, all-powerful, all-knowing source that you can appeal to, that you can trust, that you can seek, that you can safely say a prayer something like, "Thy will be done." That you can safely depend upon to take care of you. That you can, in fact, appeal to manifest beautiful abundance in your life. How to believe in that source. When your vision sometimes feels like it is full of all of these false selves, these egos walking around you, and maybe you're looking out of your own ego too much and fearful about where will this come from and what does somebody think of me, and you're in that place, entranced. Human beings become entranced with that way of thinking, and it's very easy to do, and you need to always forgive yourself for it, and you need to be thankful to yourself, to your higher self, that you're recognizing it sometimes and you're getting some freedom from that more and more. When you are operating out of your higher self, it is amazing. All of the so-called evil that other human beings may be doing suddenly looks very different. It looks like mistakes. It looks like errors that are coming out of a deluded way of thinking about themselves and other people. It looks like immaturity. It looks like ignorance, lack of understanding that there is another way to live in this realm. When you are living more and more out of your higher self, you are less fearful. You have a greater understanding that none of the things that you fear are actually real in the long run. They are not eternal in the long run. You have a greater understanding that you are very powerful and you are part of divine power. You can open your heart to the love and help from a loving source, however you wish to picture that. Whether it is by envisioning a being, interacting with a being or beings, or whether that is interacting, being part of a larger energy, vibrating with a larger energy, or whether that is calling on the Creator, the Source, God, whatever you wish to call upon. Source will come to you in whichever way you need it. When you're operating more and more in that realm, you will find yourself less and less concerned about other people acting out of ignorance, acting out of the belief that their body, the character that they've built here on this earth, is the only self that there is. They're acting out of that ignorance. They're acting out of fear. So the answer to that question turns out to be a process. I do want to ask you this. What is the benefit of not trusting an all-knowing, all-loving, all-good source? What is the benefit of holding yourself back from that? Are you afraid that if you do this, you will be like some people you thought were very spiritual who gave and gave and gave, sacrificed and sacrificed and sacrificed, were martyred, essentially? Are you afraid that that would turn you into that kind of person? Because that is not what I see. I see people relying more on a good and loving source for clarity, for wisdom, for strength, for self-love, for love for others, and seeing things much more clearly. Not feeling the need to give and give to the point of self-sacrifice, not believing that being loving and kind to other people, or being, let's just say, not judgmental, accepting of other people the way they are, although while using good judgment. This actually results in greater blessings for them. This actually results in greater self-protection where needed. Perhaps less of a need to feel for self-protection. This actually results in greater clarity. This actually results in greater abundance. This actually results in the understanding that the more we focus on the love of this oneness, the more we can love ourselves, and the more we can love other people, the more abundant we can be living ourselves, and the more abundantly we can bless other people. This understanding that others who have gone before you, that you recognize as religious leaders, or you recognize as having been very spiritual or kind or loving, they are not superior to you in any way. They have no greater chance of learning from source than you do. Trust yourself. Trust yourself to know. Trust yourself to know what is of source and what is not of source. You can simply go by how peaceful, how loving, how self-accepting you feel when different interpretations are offered to you, when you consider different interpretations. So in the end, I offer these words, perhaps to spark some ideas, or perhaps to help you find your own perspective on this. But it is you who are divine. It is you who are one with the divine. It is you who can tap into the all-knowing, all good, all loving divine, because that's who you are. It is you who will answer your own questions. It is you who will grow in your faith, in the divine, and in your own divinity. I wish all of that for you. And know that if you are a seeker, you will gradually grow in all of this. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So I'm back and I'm saying thank you. I want you to know I move into a different place when I channel, but I'm not in a trance. So a bit of Becca may peek in here and there, okay? So this is why it is good to end with the knowledge that you have everything you need. Everything you need to answer these questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.